Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, July 17th, 2020. We hope everyone is having a great week. And boy, are we heading into a hot weekend, and we'll get into that here just a little bit. First, let's get some space weather news started here. Right now, our solar wind speed's coming in at 389.6 kilometers per second with a density of 1.9. Now, our sun is blank, even though we have a bright little spot down there in the southern region. It does not qualify as a sunspot, and that now gives us 6 days in a row without a sunspot. So roughly the last time we broadcasted on Saturday, we saw a sunspot, AR 2766. It quickly declined, and it's been blank ever since. Our KP indices coming in at a 2 with a 24-hour max at also a 2. And checking out the TCI is at 2.56. And right now we have a coronal hole that is Earth facing at a 2 kp of a 24-hour max and a current. Right now we are watching, we've had a couple of earthquakes today, and those likely were triggered by the activity that we are witnessing right now from our sun. And I got some information on that as well moving forward here in the program. So let's go over to the grandsolarminimum.com and check out our space weather section. And taking a look at our solar activity, it's been relatively low over the past several days, between a 1 and a 2. We had a couple of days of 0 KP indices, but mainly sticking around the 2 indice for the time being. Taking a look at our star, well, we just don't have a lot of action right now. Our sun is still in a very deep solar minimum. We do have a bright active region here in the -30. That is beyond the eastern limb, so it is not anywhere near Earth facing at this time. We're probably about 3 or 4 days away from that region there of piercing the eastern limb. Now, as big as it is, we've seen this before. Without those dark cores, they're just active regions. But still, a good chance that this is a part of solar cycle 25, just due to the location of this, and we'll have to check the polarity as well. But other than that, we're going to remain spotless at least for a couple more days. But the only thing that we're looking at right now is that coronal hole that could be affecting Earth by July 20th on the 21st. And actually, we'll go over this in a bit, as we'll talk a little more about the sun today. Lots happening, but I wanted to mention a couple of things that I saw off of watchers.news and new phenomena discovered on the sun. I thought these articles were interesting. I'm just reading here what they're reporting. Not quite sure if this might be the proper explanation of what's happening, but nonetheless, a new sun observing mission led by the ESA and NASA Solar Orbiter has returned its first images of the sun, revealing previously unknown miniature solar flares dubbed as campfires. The campfires shown in the image below were captured by the extreme ultraviolet imager from Solar Orbiter in the first perihelion, and the point in its elliptical orbit closest to the sun. At that time, the spacecraft was only 77 million kilometers, that's 47 million miles away from the sun, about half the distance between the Earth and the sun. Now, what it appears that this phenomena that they are talking about here, and I'll put my arrow out. There's an arrow. It's very small. If you're watching on your phone, you're not going to be able to see this. So that arrow is pointing at a very small little tiny dot, right? In fact, I'll zoom this in a little bit. I mean, this is how small the phenomena is. So pretty much everything that we see in this image right here and here, there as well, qualifies as what is now called a campfire. And as you'll see here in the motion of the SDO, and this is current images, so we don't have to just base it off of what we see on watchers here. We can see for ourselves. And again, it is these little sparks that you see throughout, just kind of. I always looked at it as a circuit. To me, it always reminded me of a circuit board. And part of this phenomena they're talking about, so you see them flaring up throughout. But the study apparently is connecting the dots on, is this possible action? Is this part of coronal heating? And as these small solar flares do not amount to anything and do not affect, they're not saying they impact uh, minimum conditions or maximum conditions, but it's just a phenomenon. They're labeling it. Basically, they're calling these things little campfires, and you could see them kind of just sparking up throughout the entire surface of the sun. Again, I kind of have the, I'm in the middle on things when it comes to electric universe, but electric universe makes more sense for me as well. So I lean heavier to that side. And again, looking at the sun, when I see these little, now what they dub as campfires, I think of this sun as a circuit board, and circuits are just firing up across the sun. And so to me, this is a believable phenomena as far as contributing to coronal heating. And the sun made the news twice in a day. This was yesterday, July 16th, but a new study published in Nature Scientific reports on July 13th that suggests that powerful eruptions on the sun can trigger large earthquakes on Earth. In the paper, the author analyzed 20 years of proton density and velocity data, as recorded by the SOHO satellite, and the worldwide seismicity in the corresponding period, as reported by the ISC-GEM catalog. They found clear correlations between proton density and the occurrence of large earthquakes, magnitude of 5.6 or higher, with a time shift of 1 day. And it goes on to read here, the sun may seem relatively docile, but is constantly bombarding the solar system with energy and particles in front of the solar wind. Sometimes eruptions on the sun's surface cause coronal mass ejections that hurtle through the solar system at an extremely fast rate. So not only is it causing earthquakes on Earth, we got Mars quakes, we got Pluto quakes, we got Jupiter quakes. Again, it's telling you that this is happening throughout the solar system, not just Earth. So these CMEs are being connected now to triggering earthquakes, large earthquakes. Guys, this is pretty big, in my opinion, because when I first started doing the research of the grand solar minimum, the biggest thing that I faced a lot of criticism for was supporting John Casey's work, because back then, 2016 and beyond, a lot of people didn't seem to buy into the whole theory that the sun caused volcanic activity or causing earthquakes as well. And that was just something that, AGW folk really didn't believe in that kind of science and blah, blah, blah. And some of these people think that a lot of these earthquakes, that fracking is causing seismicity activity as well, and that's just not the truth. But anyhow, if they do cause, I think it's somewhere like a 2.6. The fracking is very weak, like 1.4 to 2.6, from what I understand. But this is huge because I remember this being a obstacle back in my earlier days when I started the research of this, and a lot of people rejected the idea that the sun causes earthquakes and volcanic activity. Now, this paper here, the abstract is down here at the bottom at watchers.news, guys. They leave the author and the actual link to the paper here on watchers.news. But the reason why this is such a big deal is that people who follow John Casey and Grand Solar Minimum topic already understood this. And this is just another step in the right direction to verifying what this community already knows. This is a huge win for, in my opinion, this paper here being published, nature.com. This is a huge victory for folks who are into solar research, who believe that the sun, and logically, in my opinion, why wouldn't the sun control everything? Look how big this thing is. First and foremost, we could sit here and talk about the argument between CO2 and the sun and what causes warming. And when you talk about the minuscule of how relevant CO2 trace gas is in the atmosphere, 0.004%, I believe, something like that, compared to a giant star that's 93 million miles away and still heats this planet up pretty good. I'm going to go with that gigantic cosmic star that gives us life. But anyway, just another notch in the belt for folks who research solar activity. Also another notch in the belt for folks who do not believe in man-made climate change, because if we are willing to recognize the connection between the sun and earthquakes and volcanoes, then it's opening the door for other possibilities as well. When you talk about protons and the density and what it does to the atmosphere, now you're starting to open up a Pandora's box of what happens when cosmic radiation saturates the atmosphere, and looking back at historic data and being able to line up cold periods with low solar activity. So, huge win for anyone who is in the research of grand solar minimum or supports the natural climate change of warming and cooling. And just another piece of evidence that proves that the sun is the main driver, not just the climate, but everything that happens on this planet. Life, whether it be human, animal, or plant. It's responsible for climate. It's responsible. Now they're showing connections, of course, of seismic activity. But again, everybody that's watching right now, most of you anyway, already knew this. This has got to feel good, though, to see things like this. When you see these corrections, when you see these peer-reviewed papers that are getting approved and published as a matter of fact. So, I just, it's been a while since we've seen any new papers that really help solidify what this channel stands for. Unfortunately, our good friend Valentina Sarkova has went through some troubling times with this particular site where her paper was retracted. And the paper was retracted for about 150 words. Now, the calculations, even if they were wrong, which she claims they're not, the calculations are so slight that it wouldn't make a difference in the end result. And therefore, she feels as if she's being bullied by the AGW crowd, and this is an unjust retraction of her paper, which I 100% agree with. The censorship is pretty big, and I was going to actually cover this as well about censorship, but I don't know. What's up with that? Had posted an article, their hosting costs have gone up. And that's not the issue. That's what they say, but realistically, they're trying to keep people like that from educating people, because there's a lot of money at stake in AGW. And if your average day Joe understands science and they get explained to people, it's explained in a way that it's layman's term for everyone to understand, that's more frightening than this technical jargon that some of these other people will spew out and sound fancy and sound like they're smart. But when you can communicate to people in a large spectrum of an audience, it's more useful, the information itself. And we are seeing some off the scene type censorship over the past several months. Now, we've also seen a shift lately in certain things that have to deal with our channel, and it's a good thing. So we'll see what happens down the road. I know there was a threat from the administration that if anybody is censoring conservative or alternative news, that they're corporations will face penalties. And that could be actually happening right now. We are getting a bigger audience, which is good stuff. We have our loyal subscribers here as well, but at the same time, we do see a lot of new faces too. But again, go to watchers.news for the link. Just another piece of evidence help connecting the dots here that it is the sun that is in control. And speaking of earthquakes, we had a couple today. One off of India, it was a 6.1. No damage reported. Some light shaking was felt. That was the early reports. And also a 7.0 in Papua New Guinea. And that hit around, that was actually downgraded from, I think it was a 7.3 it was originally reported, if I'm not mistaken. Mari and I remember earlier this morning. But this just goes back to the Earth-facing coronal hole that we have right now. And the KP indices being low between 1 and 2. That seems to be when we see favorable conditions for earthquake activity. And today, we've had 2. A 6.1 and a 7.3 downgraded now. Let's go ahead and zoom into that region. There were no tsunami warnings at this time. It does not appear. Let's check that. No tsunami warning, threat, anything like that at all. But you always got to be concerned when you see these strong quakes in the water like that. And then here we'll go to the one in India, the 5.7, but also a 6.1 as well. Boy, this is sensitive. Ugh, well, that's frustrating. Here we go. Port Blair, India is the roundabout area. The 5.7, there was a 6.1, but it's been pretty active in this region as well. And I apologize about the map not pulling back up here, folks. So we'll move on. But no, just to kind of give you an idea, that we've had this coronal hole that's Earth-facing. And I've always noticed that whenever we have a coronal hole that's Earth-facing and the KP indices is low, that is when you get, even though the solar wind is not quite here yet, but that is when we notice the action in the magnetic field, and it seems within 24 hours, ping, we get hit. So interesting to line it up as this Earth-facing coronal hole is now starting to turn away, and more than likely was the culprit of why we got the 7.3 and the 6.1. And shallow, I might add. More than 3.5 million people affected as flood situation continues to deteriorate in Assam, India. Situation continues to deteriorate with more than 5 more fatalities reported as of Thursday, July 16th. It says here people in 27 districts have been affected. A total of 97 people had lost their lives from this flooding event. And it's been going on, lots of rain in this region for quite some time now, folks. Tons of people, 3.5 million people affected. Why are they getting hit so hard right now, you say? And we were just talking about that, cosmic radiation. Now, as I reported in the space weather section today when we started the show, we saw that cosmic radiation actually is it's high, considered at 9.1, but that's kind of low. That's kind of the lowest value I've seen from cosmic radiation in quite some time. But think about this. So many days that we've seen cosmic radiation in the 10% and higher saturation of our atmosphere for several months now. So that, and that leads to what we're seeing here in India, or part of it. Not 100%, but part of it. Again, just tragic to continue to report on the same regions over and over about people losing their lives, landslides, and it's all over the world, not just in one part of the world. This is not just their rainy season. Record cold temperatures hit Rio Grande do Sul and Santa Catarina in Brazil. These temperatures here are cold for this time of the winter. The mercury plummeted to 14 degrees in the higher altitude areas of Santa Catarina. Most cities, including lower-lying areas of the Rio Grande do Sul, also shivered through freezing cold temperatures. Other areas recording at 14 degrees, a record that was set on August 2nd, 1991. The lowest minimum during the same period was around 16 degrees in another part of Brazil as well. Temperatures plummeted even lower Wednesday in at least 23 municipalities that had minimal negative record cold temperatures. Piercing 17 degrees hit in Urupema with hard frosts, according to meteorologists down there. See the images here. And again, we are in their winter time. So this is not, this is getting the right time of the year, but already breaking a lot of cold records. And we've seen record snow also in South America as well. And it's pretty early in their winter season for sure. Hurricane force winds wreak havoc in parts of western Russia, leaving 52,000 without power. This is on Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Emergency situation has been introduced in the St. Petersburg municipal region. According to the current data, the roofs of social facilities, apartment buildings, and private houses have suffered. And that's a pretty brief description, but there's video here you guys can check out at watchers.news. Go to their website. It seems like we get in a little bit of trouble every time we show other people's footage on live broadcasts. So go to their website, check out the footage. But severe thunderstorms accompanied by hurricane force winds and heavy rain hit parts of western Russia. The officials there declared a state of emergency in Saratov, St. Petersburg area. So weather happening all over. Also, I should have included today, which I still could. Let's go to watchers.news. And we have a situation in Italy. Two different situations, actually. And I guess that's why I didn't bring it up the way I did. But right now, we have on July 16th, extreme record rains lead to deadly floods and massive disruption in Sicily. And then just a couple of days before that, large tornado on the 15th, just the day before, hits Mino in Sicily, causing major damage. So we have a flood situation in India, fluxed out thanks to cosmic radiation. We've got freak storms in Russia, heavy rains, high winds. You have Italy, Sicily getting tornadoes and also flooding. So it's not just in isolated pockets of the world. It's everywhere. Europe, Asia, Russia, and here in the U.S. Now, we haven't had the kind of flooding lately that we had a few weeks ago. Nonetheless, we have a lot of rain coming up here in the upcoming forecast, and I'll go over that here just in a second. But a heat wave, first let's start there. A heat wave to approach the northeast. Forecast temperatures, that's right folks, 100 degrees. The hottest weather of the summer is poised to swelter many areas of the mid-Atlantic, central Appalachians, and southwestern and central New England late this weekend to the first part of next week. In addition to heat advisories being in effect in the Midwest, excessive heat watches were issued for Philadelphia and the surrounding area. A portion of the same weather system, a large area of high pressure, those heat domes, that has been building and broiling the south central United States much of this week will poke northeastward in the coming days. Actual temperatures are forecast to rise well into the 90s from portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York State, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, Massachusetts, West Virginia, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. I know in Albany they're talking about a possibility of hitting the 100-degree mark, and that record, I believe, is 1953, high temperature of 97 degrees. They've only hit 100 degrees here, just to give you an idea, in the capital region here of New York. It's only happened 14 times in the last 140 plus years. So some big heat coming this way. This is the map. Check this out. This is Saturday. Upper 80s and 90s for the majority of the country. Now listen, I told you this, the beginning of winter, that we are going to have a short but hot summer this year, and that's happening right now. I will say this, the lows at night are refreshing here in the Northeast, but the heat during the day is something else. 58 for the low, with temperatures reaching the upper 80s. 30-degree contrast. Hot and humid. Not used to that kind of weather up here in the Northeast for sure. If you live in the Midwest, Kentucky, Tennessee, you know, this is a walk in the park for y'all. But a lot of heat stretching out throughout the United States starting this weekend. This was to be expected. We've seen a couple of heat waves early this year already. Now, in my opinion, I feel like that we're seeing our peak strength of summer right now. And I know a lot of you probably are sitting there saying, no crap, Sherlock. But where I'm going with this is I feel like we could see temperatures starting to pull back in mid-August. And again, my biggest worry, especially when it comes to the crops, is that we had a good plant. We're having good issues with crops emerging. But what's going to happen at harvest? And how early are we going to see that first frost? I'm praying that I'm wrong. I'm praying for the crops and the farmers' sake. I hope that this summer heat continues and our crops thrive and we're able to have a great harvest, because we've had a couple of bad years. Not horrible, but we've had some down years the last 2 seasons. Anybody that's in farming can tell you that. Anyway, moving along here, also AccuWeather. We could be looking at activity in the Gulf next week as precipitation beginning to build on Friday and then into the weekend. Lots of tropical moisture and potential for that flow and put in that hot air as well. My goodness. I mean, if you live in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, that whole area on into the Northeast is just going to be brutal this weekend. But that's also going to saturate the atmosphere with enough moisture, and tropical outlook for July 21st through the 23rd. We could see a slow developing storm. And look, the water is in the upper 80s. So we are definitely able to see action here in the Gulf. Now, this guy thinks that wind shear may be too strong to allow tropical development catch on. Okay, understood. With La Nina type situation, we are usually looking at less wind shear. Right now we are neutral, so we're not in a La Nina at this time, but we are neutral, and that contributes as well to wind shear. Maybe not an immediate factor, but it's not going to keep them as strong. So just because it's not a normal breeding ground in July, with what we've seen so far here in 2020, I wouldn't say all bets are off. And I know a couple other people who follow hurricanes and weather like this, and this system has also caught their attention. So we'll keep our eyes on that Speaking of that, one of these guys is Mike's weather page at spaghettimodels.com. Again, for everyone out there who is an enthusiast about weather of any kind, you can find pretty much any map that you need to find here at Mike's weather page. Very reliable source of information. Good guy here, but very helpful tools here too to find out what wind shear is, and are we looking at dust storms from the Sahara. So I mean, everything you need to know to follow hurricanes, tropical storms, and current weather here in the lower 48, it's here at this website. Highly recommend. All right, let's take a look at the GFS, and boy, is it going to be sort of wet for the Northeast. Also hot. Right now, this typical hot, muggy pattern here in the south is going to continue. Showers off and on through Sunday, not offering a lot of relief, though, to this heat that we're going to be experiencing. And then by Sunday, storms roll through the Midwest into the Northeast by early Monday, but also a line of storms going all the way back to the Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico border. So a long line of storms from the Northeast all the way to the Southwest. And will continue to move, and that's thanks to a high-pressure system that's sitting out in the middle of the Atlantic. Now, that's normal for this time of year. A high-pressure system is where it belongs. If it was anywhere else right now, I'd be a little worried, I guess. But in the wintertime, that will normally shift north, and we'll get your Greenland blocking events from high pressure hanging out north. But during the summer months, they're here in the middle of the Atlantic. And this is just going to bring a lot of rain, in my opinion, from looking at these models. Off and on showers from the deep south all the way through the Midwest to the Northeast over the next few days. This is Wednesday, more of the same, Ohio Valley. Again, that line of storms going all the way back to the Southwest. They need the rain, no doubt. By next weekend, the Northeast could be busy once again. And there, if you look in the Gulf right here, this is what AccuWeather is watching, that we could see a possible development here. And they think right now wind shear is just too strong. So we'll just continue to watch this particular system here over the next several days. The GFS doesn't have a lot of confidence in it being much, other than it being a rain event. But again, more rain for the Atlantic states, the Midwest, into the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and that is next Sunday. And after that, really, it's just more of the same. More rain to the same areas, in the same spots. A little bit of high pressure coming in, though, August 2nd. That's what I'm talking about. That high pressure here could potentially change the pattern a little bit and maybe even bring cooler temperatures. Let's take a look. Not guaranteeing that. Hot temperatures across the United States right now. It is the middle of summer, folks, and it feels like it. Big time. That heat will last all the way till Monday and then start to cool off a little bit in the northern plains, 70s, 60s even, in parts of Minnesota and North Dakota. And it's going to get real nice again in the Northeast, the Ohio Valley. But we are going to see some warmth for sure over the next several days. And it'll kind of just pull back into normal summer temperatures for the Midwest, the northern plains, the Northeast. But the South and the Southwest stay hot past this weekend into late July. Again, temperatures summer-like still for the Ohio Valley and Northeast, 70s and 80s where they should be. Hot weather across the South into the northern plain states as well, into the central part of the United States. Let's go to the end of July. Now, again, you get this far out. Here we are at the 28th. This is not the most reliable, but it gives you an idea, a sense of what GFS is thinking. It's going to get really hot in California. Arizona as well, late July. But by July 30th, we are seeing the result of that high pressure system. Look at that. Look at that. So on the GFS precipitation map, we start to see a high pressure region. Hold on. Right in here on August 2nd. And in my opinion, from what I thought I saw, we were going to see cooler temps Sure enough, on this latest run, we are looking at high temperatures only in the upper 60s in parts, and even high 50s in parts of upstate New York on August 2nd. Dog days of summer now. Also, a lot cooler temperatures across the rest of the region, too. Check this out, guys. The first week of August is going to be very deceiving. Check out July 31st, daytime high temperatures across most of the regions in the mid-70s, low 80s. Hot across the south. That's typical, summer. So noticeably cooler weather thanks to a high-pressure system that's kind of taken over in the northeastern part here of Canada. Or actually, it's the southeast part of Canada, I should say, northeast United States. So some interesting weather. Again, short, hot summer. I've said this many times. I feel like with what we're looking at here in the GFS, this could be fool's gold. It could change in 3 days and we could see much hotter temperatures. But if this run continues to show this, my thoughts of temperatures kind of pulling back in mid-August and early August as well are very, very possible. Want to give a shout out to Laura. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also, Pat Drummond in there as well with the super chat. Thank you very much, guys. We apologize. We haven't been on as much, but we are starting to approach a calmer pattern to where we could broadcast a little bit more and give some more updates. Because honestly, there was a lot to go over in this show today too as well. There could have been probably more topics I could have brought up. I might have been on the air though for 2 hours at that point. Pete, how you doing? Good to see you out there. Mr. Starman himself, David Birch, good to see you, my friend. I know I'm broadcasting at a time that's favorable for our friends across the sea. Usually we are on too late. Geo, good to see you, sir. And a lot of new faces. And we appreciate the support. Oh, it looks like Henrik was here as well. Henrik from Denmark, an old friend of ours we've had on the show before. Very, very, very educational on growing vegetation, that's for sure. If you guys are subscribed to his channel, it is quite the treat. I will say that. But other than that, Mari, did you want to say hello to anybody before we sign off the air?
I just would like to say hi to everyone, and I was going to thank our super chatters, so thank you for super chatting with us, Jake. You beat me to the punch.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Taking your job away, ain't I?
You sort of did.
Sheesh.
But that's okay, because I got more work for you to do on Monday. You can make it up to me then.
Yeah. Hopefully soon. Well, yeah. Well, you know, what do you do?
Progress on the house, and that's why we've been crazy schedule-wise, but
it's getting there.
We're maintaining a positive attitude and one step forward each day, right, Jake?
It has electric and a toilet, so we're getting there. We're getting there.
You can't flush the toilet. But
you can't flush it, but we got one, and electric just got ran through the whole house, so that's good stuff. There. Yeah.
We got a roof too.
Couple more big projects, and we'll be done with it. But again, we thank everybody who continues to support this channel. Super chats, even T-shirts. Mari actually shared something exciting with me. Would you mind sharing that?
Teespring is letting us beta test a feature. If you go to our Teespring store during a live show and buy a T-shirt, apparently it's going to show up in the chat, thanking you for it automatically. So that's a neat little integration with Teespring and YouTube, and Teespring has put us on the list of YouTubers to test this new feature,
which is great.
So I'm going to be interested to see who the first one is next show,
broadcast,
perhaps. Yeah. To see if that feature actually works. We got to test it out.
And what a great way to show GSM pride, too. Like, you go and you're listening to the broadcast. If you like what you hear we're doing, you go to our Teespring, you buy a shirt. Well, that's going to show up in the news feed, or the live chat feed, I should say. And that right there is just a way of showing pride and supporting this channel as far as the reports that we do. If you guys like what we do, we encourage you to check out our shirts at Teespring. you'll find the link to the store in the description, I should say, right?
It should be in the
It should be.
description.
It
If
better
not,
be.
I will pin it in the comments below.
I think when you go to our YouTube videos, it shows you our Teespring store anyway. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you, Mari, for saying hello to our lovely people in the chat. We appreciate you guys tuning into the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We hope to do a broadcast tomorrow afternoon, give you guys another update on worldwide events, weather, volcanic, and earthquake, space-related. We'll be here for it. Until then, guys, we'll talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.